We're going to start tonight, and I'm a little bit out of breath. I'm very tired today, so if I have to, if I don't sound normal, it's because I'm not. We're starting to read, learning from the writings, the hope-filled teachings of Nichiren and Daishonin. This is another one of President Ikeda's lecture series. It actually precedes the Teachings for Victory lecture series. So this has actually kind of been out there for several years at this point in time. But it's got really unbelievably fabulous goshos in it, and that's why I'm looking forward to sharing all of those with you one by one as we study them through President Ikeda's lecture. So, the first gosho that we're going to be reading from this, okay, is a gosho called The Drum at the Gate of Thunder. Alright? So, what we're going to do is, like always, we're going to read the whole gosho, which is only 2 pages long, so that's not going to take long. We'll be right into the lecture. I'm going to start by reading the background. This gosho, the drum at Thunder Gate, or the Gate of Thunder, is actually on page 948 of Volume 1. Okay? So, starting. Here we go. Page 948, Volume 1, The Drum at Thunder Gate. Gosho number 127. I have received 1,000 blue duck coins, 1 toe of dried rice, and other articles. The boy Virtue Victorious, who offered a mud pie to the Buddha, was reborn as King Ashoka, and an old woman who offered the Buddha rice gruel was reborn as a Pratyeka Buddha. The Lotus Sutra is the teacher of all the Buddhas, of the 10 directions and the 3 existences. That means all Buddhas. The Buddhas of the 10 directions are the Buddha Good Virtue in the east, the Buddha Sorrows Dispelling Virtue in the southeast, the Buddha Sandalwood Virtue in the south, the Buddha Giver of Treasure in the southwest, the Buddha Infinite Brightness in the west, the Buddha Flower Virtue in the northwest, the Buddha Banner-like Virtue in the north, the Buddha Three Vehicles Practice in the northeast, the Buddha Vast Myriad Virtues of the zenith, you know, that's up, and the Buddha Brilliant Virtue of the nadir. Okay, those are all from, pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. The Buddhas of the 3 existences are the 1,000 Buddhas of the past glorious Kalpa, the 1,000 Buddhas of the present wise Kalpa, and 1,000 Buddhas of the future constellation Kalpa, as well as all the other Buddhas depicted in the Mahayana, Hinayana, provisional, and true, and exoteric and esoteric sutras, including the Flower Garland Lotus Sutra and Nirvana Sutras. These Buddhists, so does everybody understand what he said so far? What's he said so far? He's qualified by name the Buddhas of the 10 directions, which are representative of all Buddhas throughout the universe. You understand? And he's basically made a declarative that all of them attained Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, not through any other teaching. Okay? Not even just the Lotus Sutra. They are all originally attained Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Therefore, he says, therefore the Universal Worthy Sutra, the epilogue to the Lotus Sutra, which is the one that follows it, is part of the threefold Lotus Sutra. A Buddha's 3 type of bodies are born from this correct and equal sutra. The term correct and equal derives from an Indian word, and was translated in China as great vehicle. Great vehicle, or Mahayana, is another name for the Lotus Sutra. The Agama Sutras, when compared with non-Buddhist scriptures, are regarded as Mahayana, or sutras of the great vehicle. Similarly, the Flower Garland, Wisdom, Mahavrachana, and other sutras, when compared to the Agama Sutras, are defined as Mahayana Sutras. But they in turn fall within the category of Hinayana Sutras, or sutras of the lesser vehicle, when compared with the Lotus Sutra. As no sutra surpasses the Lotus, it is the one and only Mahayana Sutra. Everybody understands that, right? He's requalifying all the sutras according to the teachings of Shakyamuni. To illustrate, each ruler of the 84,000 countries in the southern continent of Japavipa is called the great king within his country, but when compared with a wheel-turning king, he is called a minor king. In like manner, each of the kings of the 6 heavens of the world of desire and of the 4 meditation heavens may be called either a great king or a minor king, depending on whom he is compared with. But the great heavenly king Brahma, who resides at the top of the world of form, is the one great ruler who can never be called a minor king. Do you understand what he's qualifying here? He's saying kings are to kings based on what the king actually represents in terms of kingdom. That's why he's qualifying the lotus as being the king compared. All these other sutras are kings as well in their own right. But by virtue of comparison to the lotus, they become minor. Do you understand? And nothing excels or exceeds Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, because that's really what he's saying when he's talking about the lotus now, right? And that's really what he's talking about when he's talking about Mahayana Buddhism now. Compared to the other sutras, the only teaching that is true Mahayana in the latter day of the law is what? The Buddhism of the sowing, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. A Buddha is a child, and the Lotus Sutra, its parents. What does that mean? It means that no Buddha is ever born without the Lotus Sutra, the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, as the thing that awakened it. Do you understand? If the parents of 1,000 children are praised, those 1,000 children will rejoice. If one makes offerings to the parents, one makes offerings to their 1,000 children as well. Those who make offerings to the Lotus Sutra will receive the same benefit as they would by making offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, because all the Buddhas in the 10 directions originate from the single character Myo. Everybody's with me? Okay. Suppose a lion has 100 cubs. When the Lion King sees its cubs attacked by other beasts or birds of prey, he roars. The 100 cubs will then feel emboldened, and the heads of those other beasts and birds of prey will split into 7 pieces. The Lotus Sutra is like the Lion King who rules over all other animals. You with me, right? So these are all declaratives about the superiority of the Lotus Sutra, and by virtue of declaring Lotus Sutra the superior sutra of the Buddhism of the harvest, he's qualifying the superiority of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the Buddhism of the sowing. Do you understand? Yeah. A woman who embraces the Lion King of the Lotus Sutra never fears any of the beasts of hell or in the realms of hungry spirits and animals. All of the offenses committed by a woman in her lifetime are like dry grass, and the single character Myo of the Lotus Sutra is like a small spark. When a small spark is set to a large expanse of grass, not only the grass but also the big trees and large stones will be consumed. Such is the power of the fire of wisdom in the single character of Myo. Not only will all offenses vanish, but they will become sources of benefit. This is what changing poison into amrita, poison into medicine, means. For example, black lacquer will turn white when white powder is added. A woman's offenses are like the lacquer, and the words Nam-myoho Renge-kyo like the white powder. Everybody's with me? All right, so he says, when one dies, if one is destined to fall into hell, one's appearance will darken and one's body will become as heavy as a stone that requires the strength of 1,000 men to move. But in the case of a good person, even if she should be a woman 7 or 8 feet tall and a dark complexion, at the hour of death, her countenance will become pure and white, and her body will be as light as a goose feather and as soft and pliable as cotton. Okay, now I doubt that the Daishonin met very many women that were 7 or 8 feet tall. Okay, so do you understand what he's trying to qualify there? He's saying that this is all about the life that you've led. It's not the life that you've left behind. And the life that you've left is what's going to actually qualify your countenance at the point of death. All right? So President Ikeda is going to get into don't worry about all that too much as it relates to a literal conveyance of that idea to death, okay, in terms of like how white you are or how dark you are. Obviously, if you were an African American, or if you're from Africa, if you were African ancestry, you would not turn white at death, okay? So this has nothing to do with those kinds of issues. This is trying to convey the countenance of oneself at the time of death, not the color of oneself at the time of death. Do you understand that? So you can't look at somebody that's died and go, oh, he's a little dark, looks like he went to hell. That's not really what he's saying. That is not what he's saying. He didn't give you a color chart now to judge who was good in life and who wasn't based on what color they were when they died. Do understand that. Okay? Don't take all of this quite so literally. Okay? So if your parents weren't exactly like brilliant white, like lacquer, white powder turned into black, poured into black lacquer, do not despair. Because it's really not about them anyhow. It's about you. It is up to them, but you're the predication of that. It is 1,000 ri across the ocean and mountains from Sato province to this province. You as a woman, because this is from Shinichiyama, you as a woman have held fast to your faith in the Lotus Sutra, and over the years you have repeatedly sent your husband, Abutsubo, here to visit me in your place. Surely the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhism of the 10 directions know of your devotion. For example, though the moon is 40,000 yojanas high in the heavens, its reflection appears instantly in a pond on earth, and the sound of the drum at the gate of thunder is immediately heard 1,000, 10,000 ri in the distance. Though you remain in Sato, your heart has come to this province. This is very important now. The way of attaining Buddhahood is just like this. Okay, so when he says just like this, what has he been talking about? He's talking about the instantaneous aspect of the power of the law. He's compared it to the moon, okay? That instantaneously the light gets to the pond on the earth. Okay, he's talking about the drum at Thunder Gate, or the Gate of Thunder, being heard instantaneously, 10,000 whatever, 10,000 ri in the distance. He's talking about the aspect of the simultaneity of cause and effect based on your life. He says, the way of attaining Buddhahood is just like this. Though we live in the impure land of the 9 worlds, our hearts, our 10th world aspect is activated. Our hearts reside in the pure land of Eagle Peak. Do you understand? Our Buddha nature is active even though we're living in the impure land of the 9 worlds. He's saying merely seeing each other's face would in itself be insignificant. Why? Because if you perceive this correctly, you understand that you're going to see this face as different faces for many lifetimes than you already have for many lifetimes. So it's not really so much about you and how you look and what your sense of humor is and all those kinds of things. It's really, who are you as a human being? Are you a Buddha? Are you a disciple of the true teacher? Okay? Of the true teaching. He says, merely seeing each other's face would itself be insignificant compared to the magnitude of our true relationship. Which is why you can be all the way on Sato Island, but you're really right here with me. Why? It is the heart that is important. Okay? Someday, let us meet at Eagle Peak, where Shakyamuni Buddha dwells. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, with my deep respect and Nichiren. Now, again, this was to Abutsubo and Shinichi. Actually, to Shinichi, I forgot to read the background first. Let me do that now before we start the lecture. Okay. This letter was written at Minobu to the lay nun Shinichi. So at Minobu means what? After Sato Island exile, right? To the lay nun Shinichi, the wife of Abutsubo, who lived on Sato Island. After Nichiren Daishonin left Kamakura for Mount Minobu, the lay nun's husband traveled all the way from Sato 3 times at least to visit him on her behalf. In this letter, the Daishonin praises Shinichi for her sincerity in sending him offerings from so far away, and explains the benefits resulting from sincere offerings. Then he declares the Lotus Sutra to be the supreme teaching by revealing that all the Buddhas derive their enlightenment from it. Because the Lotus Sutra is the source of all Buddhas, he explains, the act of making offerings to the Lotus Sutra brings the same benefit as making offerings to all the Buddhas throughout the universe. He also says that the Lotus Sutra, ultimately the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Notice how the comma puts in there, because he doesn't say Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. He talks about the Lotus Sutra. But understand, every time he says the Lotus Sutra, he's talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is part of what you have to be able to discern when he's writing his writings, because he's still basing everything on the Buddhism of the harvest, because the Buddhism of sowing is still being born. All right? So he's saying, because the Lotus Sutra is the source of all Buddhas, he explains the act of making offerings to the Lotus Sutra brings the same benefit as making offerings to all the Buddhas throughout the universe. He also says that the Lotus Sutra, ultimately the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, possesses the power to change poison into medicine and is capable of transforming past offenses into sources of benefit and good fortune. Because in the latter day of the law, this is the mechanism by which we give alms to all those Buddhas that have preceded us. Do you understand? All right, so he's saying, the Daishonin goes on to discuss the moment of death and encourages Shinichi, a woman advanced in years, who's facing the real reality that death is coming sooner than later, to strengthen her faith in the Lotus Sutra even further. And we all know how strong her faith already must be, right? So he's saying, in the last section, the Daishonin expresses admiration for Shinichi's faith and seeking mind that helped enable her husband to travel all the way from Sada to Minobu. Although the lay nun herself was unable to visit the Daishonin, he says to her, your heart has come to this province, adding that it is the heart that is important. He goes on to explain that the believers in the Lotus Sutra, or Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is what he really is saying, although dwelling in the mundane world, can enjoy supreme happiness without having to go elsewhere to find it. All right? Everybody's with me?
Yes.
All right. So again, what I want to again qualify here is that Shinichi is advancing in years. Shinichi and her husband, Abutsubo, have basically kept the Daishonin alive. If it weren't for them, he may not have made it in those first years on Sado Island, right? Before he got moved into the residence of that he did at the latter part of while he was staying there. So we already know she's a woman of faith, right? Mm-hmm. But does he just say, oh, you're a woman of faith, you're going to attain Buddhahood in your present form, you don't have to worry about anything. No. He says, now that you're getting older, you should even more redouble your efforts to understand and perceive your true identity. Mm-hmm. If you don't yet, if you've written me this letter out of concerns, and we also know from reading a previous letter to Shinichi that Abutsubo had brought, right? That she was hung up about can women be, because women can attain Buddhahood. So he's basically letting her know to continue to strive to perceive the true nature of her own life as being inseparable from the Lotus Sutra. Do you understand? Because that's the source of all Buddhas. He's saying right here in the first, they all originate from the single character myo, or wonderful. So if we're Buddhas, where do we originate from? The original state. That's what myo is. The mystic, without definition, without end, without form, without anything. Okay? So going to the lecture now on page... The Drum at Thunder Gate. Page 1. Learning from the writings of the hope-filled teachings of Nichiren Daishonin. Starting on page 1. The drum at the gate of thunder. It is the heart that is important. Continuously strive to deepen and strengthen the bonds of mentor and disciple. In adversity, because that's what Shinichi was doing in that process of continuing to communicate with Nichiren, correct? And sending her husband to deliver the letter. They didn't have mail service. In adversity, it is necessary to cry out, hope! Hope, and yet again, hope. This was the message that the French writer Victor Hugo sent from his place of exile to compatriots suffering under an oppressive regime. No matter how adverse the circumstances, as long as we have hope, we will never be defeated. As long as we have hope, we can keep moving forward. And that's the predication of our doubt-free faith.
Right.
All right? Nichiren Buddhism is a teaching of hope. It is a great philosophy affirming that we possess within ourselves the infinite power to surmount all hardships and break through all obstacles. It doesn't say we can find the power in something outside of ourselves to be able to rely on to deliver us from those circumstances. It says we are the Buddha that can kick ass on these difficulties. We have no problem to do that if we address ourselves correctly. He says, Nichiren Buddhism is a teaching of hope. It is a great philosophy affirming that we possess within ourselves the infinite power to surmount all hardships and break through all obstacles. Nichiren Buddhism also teaches the practice by which we can tap this infinite power in our lives, backed by solid examples of actual proof. As such, it is an inspirational teaching that has the power to generate unceasing hope in the hearts of all people. The writings of Nichiren Daishonin fully elucidate this philosophy of hope, as well as its practice and proof. So the teaching, the practice, and the proof, right? They are a source of illumination that endlessly encourages and inspires. Nichiren composed these hope-filled writings for his followers and for all humankind in the midst of daunting and often life-threatening struggles. My mentor, Josei Toda, the second Soka Gakkai president, once said, Nichiren, while himself experiencing serious illness, and we've read these goshos as well. Remember the one where Nanjo Tokimitsu, I think it was who was so terribly sick, and Nichiren wrote to him, even though he was so sick, he felt he needed somebody else to write in his behalf. Nichiren, while himself experiencing serious illness and harsh persecution, exhorts us to forge ahead and shape our own destiny right in the midst of such obstacles, just as he did. We are truly fortunate in this regard to have his example to follow. All right? I too have learned this from Nichiren, who engaged in a life and death struggle to impart his teachings. Let us strive and read with our lives, that is, to put into practice even a line or two of Nichiren's writings, which overflow with his spirit. Basing ourselves on his teachings and pursuing study to strengthen our Buddhist practice are true traditions of the Soka Gakkai. As we head toward the 80th anniversary of the Soka Gakkai's founding in 2010, let us together study one writing each month in this series, focusing mainly on letters sent to individual followers with the spirit to learn from the towering life state of the Buddha of the latter day of the law. So that tells you the kind of goshos that we're going to be reading in this series. From this first lecture, we will study the drum at the gate of thunder, a letter addressed to the lay nun Shinichi. The passage for study in this lecture, which I just read, but there's not that much of it, so this will be all of it for this lecture. Those who make offerings to the Lotus Sutra will receive the same benefit as they would by making offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, because all the Buddhas of the 10 directions originate from the single character Myo. Suppose a lion has 100 cubs. When the Lion King sees its cubs attacked by other beasts or birds of prey, he roars. The 100 cubs will then feel emboldened, and the heads of those other beasts and birds of prey will split into 7 pieces. The Lotus Sutra is the Lion King who rules over all other animals. A woman who embraces the Lion King of the Lotus Sutra never fears any of the beasts of hell or of the realms of hungry spirits or animals, the 3 lower paths, right? All the offenses committed by a woman in her lifetime are like dry grass, and the single character Myo of the Lotus Sutra is a small spark, which makes them all burn up and go away. When a small spark is set to a large expanse of grass, not only are the small things taken up, but the big things are as well. But also the big trees and large stones will all be consumed. Such is the power of the fire of wisdom in the single character Myo. Not only will all offenses vanish, but they will all become sources of benefit. Why? How? Because in the latter day of the law, as the Buddhas of the Buddhism of the sowing, that's what we utilize for the purpose of establishing the 10th world in our life, right? We do human revolution. We don't live perfect little protected lives. We struggle. We go through all the things that he's talking about here, and we attain Buddhahood in our present form, correct? Yes. That's exactly what he's referring to. What we do in our daily life is exactly what he's referring to right now. He says, such is the power of the fire of the wisdom of the single character Myo. Not only will all offenses vanish, but they will become sources of benefit. This is what changing poison into medicine means. For example, black lacquer will turn white when white powder is added. A woman's offenses are like the lacquer, and the words Nam Myoho Renge Kyo like the white powder. When one dies, if one is destined to fall into hell, one's appearance will darken, and one's body will become as heavy as a stone that requires the strength of 1,000 men to move. But in the case of a good person, even if she should be a woman 7 or 8 feet tall and of dark complexion, at the hour of death her countenance will become pure and white, and her body will be as light as a goose feather and as soft and pliable as cotton. It is 1,000 ri across the sea and mountains from Sato province to this province of Kai, where Mountain Minobu is located. You as a woman have held fast to your faith in the Lotus Sutra, and over the years you have repeatedly sent your husband here to visit me in your place. Surely the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni, many treasures in the Buddhism of the 10 directions know of your devotion. For example, though the moon is 40,000 yojanas high in the heavens, its reflection appears instantly in a pond on earth, and the sound of the drum at the gate of thunder is immediately heard 10,000 ri in the distance. Though you remain in Sato, your heart has come to this province. The way of attaining Buddhahood is just like this. Though we live in the impure land, our hearts reside in the pure land of Eagle Peak. Merely seeing each other's face would be in itself be insignificant. Just see each other for the sake of seeing each other would be insignificant. It is the heart that is important. It's why we desire the relationship that we have. Someday let us meet at the pure land of Eagle Peak where Shakyamuni Buddha dwells. President Ikeda's lecture, starting on page 3. It is the heart that is important. Nichiren Daishonin declares, the strongest bond in the mentor-disciple relationship in Buddhism is that of the heart. The hearts of the mentor and disciple who aspire for the widespread propagation of the mystic law can connect instantly, transcending any distance that may lie between them. Why? They are both bodhisattvas of the earth, regardless of whether one is the mentor or the other is the disciple. Do you understand? Just as when the moon appears in the heavens, its reflection appears instantly in a pond on earth. So dependent origination, that mentor-disciple relationship has preceded the existence that they're experiencing it in now. This letter of the drum at the gate of thunder is like a great painting depicting the heart-to-heart exchange between mentor and disciple separated by a vast distance. Nichiren wrote this letter while living on Mount Minobu on October 19th, 1278, when he was 57 years old. He addressed it to the lay nun Shinichi, who lived on Sato Island, far away across the mountains and the sea. Previously, during Nichiren's exile on Sato, the lay nun Shinichi and her husband, Abutsubo, converted to his teachings. They were sincere and pure-hearted followers who risked their lives to support and assist him. Even after Nichiren moved to Mount Minobu, this husband and wife played a leading role in efforts to propagate the mystic law on Sato, striving to fulfill the noble mission that Nichiren had entrusted to them. Furthermore, during a period of several years until his death, Abutsubo, despite his advanced age, made the long, perilous journey from Sato to visit Nichiren at least 3 times. In the summer of 1278, a few months before this letter was written, Abutsubo had once again journeyed to Mount Minobu, motivated to seek out and support his mentor, Nichiren. So he didn't come to visit. He actually came to bring him things to keep him going, offerings. Later that same year, as winter approached, Nichiren received offerings from the lay nun Shinichi. In this letter, which he composed to thank her for them, Nichiren also praises her unwavering sincerity in having sent Abutsubo to visit him almost every year. He encourages the lay nun wholeheartedly, saying to the effect, since you are a woman who embraces the Lion King of Sutras, there is nothing whatsoever that you need to fear. Shakyamuni, many treasures in the Buddhas of the 10 directions and 3 existences surely know of your devotion. This letter resounds with the wondrous spirit of the unity of mentor and disciple. It reflects the faith of the disciple who sincerely seeks the mentor, and the compassion of the mentor who strives to deeply encourage the disciple. Those who make offerings to the Lotus Sutra, this is again from the Sutra, or pardon me, from the Gosho. Those who make offerings to the Lotus Sutra will receive the same benefit as they would by making offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, because all the Buddhas of the 10 directions originate from the single character myo. Suppose a lion has 100 cubs. When the Lion King sees its cubs attacked by other beasts or birds of prey, he roars. The 100 cubs will then feel emboldened, and the heads of those other beasts and birds of prey will all split into 7 pieces. The Lotus Sutra is like the Lion King who rules over all the other animals. A woman who embraces the Lion King of the Lotus Sutra never fears any other beasts of hell or of any of the realms of hungry spirits and animals. Boundless benefit resides in making offerings to the Lotus Sutra. Continuing on page 4 with President Ikeda's lecture. The benefit of making offerings to the Lotus Sutra is boundless. Through that benefit, we can triumph over any obstacle and devilish function. And nothing is stronger than a person whose life is instilled with this confidence. The Lotus Sutra, epitomized by the single character myo, is the source of the enlightenment of all the Buddhas of the 10 directions and 3 existences. The sutras teach that countless Buddhas have appeared in the universe from the infinite past, and will continue to do so into the infinite future. The Lotus Sutra is the teacher by which all Buddhas attain enlightenment. You're with me? Mm-hmm. Therefore, making offerings to the Lotus Sutra is equivalent to making offerings to all Buddhas throughout the time and space, and the benefit that derives from doing so is immeasurable. In the first part of this writing, Nichiren Daishonin cites the names of each of the Buddhas of the 10 directions who are described in the sutras. And I have this point number 4 highlighted, so let me go and read that to you real quick. Number 4. This is really talking about he's just requalifying that these 10 names that are given are used to represent all of the infinite number of Buddhas throughout the 10 directions. He also explains that the Buddhas of the 3 existences, that is, of past, present, and future, are depicted in the sutra as the 1,000 Buddhas of the past glorious kalpa, the 1,000 Buddhas of the present wise kalpa, and the 1,000 Buddhas of the future constellation kalpa. And again, you can go to point 5. He says the glorious kalpa, the wise kalpa, and the constellation kalpa are the kalpas of the past, present, and future, respectively. Okay, so those past, present, and future are given names, just like those 10 directions are given names of Buddhas to represent everything. He's saying, why does Nichiren here present such a grand and magnificent view of the universe? In terms of the worldview of the day, the letter's recipient, the lay nun Shinichi, was an elderly woman of no particular distinction, living on a remote northerly island, which was itself a tiny, isolated archipelago. But in terms of faith, her spirit was steadfastly support and assist Nichiren, leader of the widespread propagation of the Mystic Law. But in terms of faith, her spirit was to steadfastly support and assist Nichiren, leader of the widespread propagation of the Mystic Law, was admirable beyond compare and shone with the sublime nobility. By describing the existence of the countless Buddhas in the universe, Nichiren no doubt seeks to highlight her good fortune and benefit, which are as vast as the universe. He is saying to the effect, to make offerings to the Lotus Sutra is to make offerings to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. Therefore, they are all sure to protect you. You will absolutely never become deadlocked. You need not worry about anything. You can serenely savor a state of life as eternal and vast as the universe. Everybody's with me? So do keep in mind, though, when he qualifies who Shinichi actually was, is she really anybody that's more extraordinary than any of you?
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Just as common as any of us, except for the fact that she has expressed faith in exactly the manner that we should as well. So if we're not expressing faith in that way, we should try to follow her example, even though she's a very common person. He's saying that even though she's a common person, the example that she lives is completely uncommon. And that's also what each one of us can do. We can be common people, but we can show extraordinary, uncommon wisdom by understanding the teaching and expressing our faith as such. The benefit inherent in the character Myo, the three meanings of Myo. Nichiren, continuing on page 6. Nichiren Daishonin states that this is so because all the Buddhas of the 10 directions originate from the single character Myo. The single character Myo refers to the Myo of Myoho, the mystic law or wonderful law, and the Myo of Myoho Rengekyo, the title of the Lotus Sutra. While various principles are expounded in the 28th chapter Lotus Sutra, this is real important, everybody with me?
Yes.
In the final analysis, these are all for the purpose of expressing, teaching, and transmitting the mystic principle of Myo. One who fully understands and embodies this mystic principle becomes a Buddha. Now, what is the mystic principle of Myo all about? He's going to tell you anyhow. But think it through. It's the inseparability of all things. If you get to the one thing that's the common denominator of all things, it's the mystic law. It is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Then that thing is the thing that creates this oneness of all things. Let me say it again. Nichiren Daishonin states that this is so because all the Buddhas of the 10 directions originate from the single character Myo. That's the original state. Okay? The ninth consciousness. The single character Myo refers to the Myo of Myoho, the mystic law, okay, or wonderful law, and the Myo of Myoho Renge-kyo, the original teaching, the original state of the title of Lotus Sutra. While various principles are expounded in the 28th chapter Lotus Sutra, like all kinds of different things throughout that 28 chapters, right? In the final analysis, these are all for the purpose of expressing, teaching, and transmitting the mystic principle of Myo, of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, okay? Of the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, the title. Do you understand? That's what he just qualified what it is. It's the Myoho of Myoho Renge-kyo, the title, and also of the Myoho of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the teaching. One who fully understands and embodies this mystic principle of inseparability of all things, the wisdom, that wisdom, becomes a Buddha. The Lotus Sutra is thus the teacher of all Buddhas, and it is in order to enable all people of the evil age of the latter day of the law to awaken to the power of Myo that Nichiren revealed and propagated Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the three great secret laws, the teaching implicit in the depths of the Lotus Sutra. You with me? All right. In his writing, the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, which we've read, Nichiren explains that Myo has three meanings: to open, to be fully endowed, and to revive. Do you guys remember that? Let us look now at each of these. Number one, the character Myo means to open. This means that the Lotus Sutra is the key that opens the storehouses of all the sutras preached by the Buddha, making it possible for the treasures that lie within these sutras to be utilized. You understand? Everybody's with me, right? It's only through the perspective of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that there's any validity in any of the teachings of the Buddha and the harvest. Myo means to. Myo means to be fully endowed, which in turn has the meaning of perfect and full. This means that just as all treasures emerge from a wish-granting jewel as small as a mustard seed, and just as all plants and flowers bloom due to the light of the sun, so each single character of the Lotus Sutra contains all teachings and benefits within it. Does everybody understand that? Do you?
Yeah.
This means that just as all treasures emerge from a wish-granting jewel, as small as a mustard seed, and just as all plants and flowers bloom due to the light of the sun, so each single character of the Lotus Sutra contains all teachings and benefits within it. He's likened each character of the Lotus Sutra to a Buddha, right? It's actually 69,000 and some odd whatever it was Buddhas, right? Each character is a Buddha, right? So, and that's because there's no separability between each one of those characters and all the Buddhas throughout the 10 directions and the 3 existences. That's what this Gosho is all about. Do you understand? There's no separability. 3. Myo means to revive, that is, to return to life. This means that the Lotus Sutra can impart fresh life and hope to all people, even those who had been deemed incapable of attaining enlightenment in the pre-Lotus Sutra's teachings, and enable them to attain Buddhahood without fail. So what's the last one about? It's to revive that innate original state. Okay, that 10th world that is there for Ichikantikas, for women, for everybody, for people, the 2 vehicles, all the people that aren't supposed to be able to evil people, everybody, right? Everybody can have their Buddha nature revived by Myo. It's always revive means to bring back. It doesn't mean to impart or to put it in or to give it for the first time. Revive means it was already there, now it's been reawakened. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, so the mystic law is the fundamental and perfect law that encompasses all phenomena. And the mystic law is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, right? So you're saying the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the fundamental and perfect law that encompasses all phenomena. Okay? The principle of full endowment. And Nam-myoho Renge-kyo has the power to open and bring out the inherent value of all things. This is the principle of opening, right? And as such, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo has the power to revitalize and invigorate even those facing the most adverse and intractable circumstances and enable them to attain Buddhahood. Right? That's the principle of reviving. By chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the teaching others and teaching others to do the same. And what's the significance of that comma and that little phrase there? Jigyo Keita. You cannot attain Buddhahood in your present form unless you're just as devoted to others also attaining it. You can't do this for yourself. So that's why he always, and teaching others to do the same. He always has to stick that in there because that is a prerequisite for you to get what this is saying you can get. You cannot get it without that parenthetical little addition. And teaching others to do the same. We can concretely manifest the power of the single character of Myo in our own lives. What's that mean? We can be the Buddha in our present form. That is the wonderful benefit of Nichiren Buddhism. Each one of us can be the Buddha in our present form. We carry out our Buddhist practice in order to profoundly engrave the single character Myo in our lives and to master its meaning through experience, to manifest the wisdom to teach others, to make them equal to ourselves. This is also the point of our activities for Kosen Rufu. President Toda composed the following poem. Now the time has arrived for the widespread propagation of the correct teaching. We stake our lives on the single character Myo. When we strive to further Kosen Rufu without begrudging our lives, we can fully receive the benefit of the single character Myo in every facet of our beings. What did he just say there? When we strive to further Kosen Rufu without begrudging our lives. What is that?
You are already awakened. You are
Yeah.
Shakubuku people.
Yeah.
You are on mission.
Yeah. When we are of the same mind as the original teacher, we can fully receive. You understand? That's what he's saying. When we strive to further Kosen Rufu without begrudging our lives, that's what Nichiren did. That's what the Bodhisattvas of the earth are supposed to make their advent for the purpose of, right? When we fulfill our missions
Right.
that we were born to fulfill,
Right.
we can fully receive the benefit of the single character Myo in every facet. We can be the Buddha in every facet of our beings in the 9 worlds.
Yes.
The benefit of women who embrace the Lion King of Sutras, page 7, first column at the very bottom. In this relatively short letter, Nichiren begins quite a few sentences with words like, for example, suppose, and to illustrate, in clarifying his meaning. We can interpret this as reflecting his deep compassion to explain the principles of Buddhism in the most easily accessible and readily understandable form for his recipient. All right? You understand? In other words, making it perceiving the level of the individual that you're trying to reach and impact with what you're saying, and make it understandable to them, rather than impressing them with a lot of things that are not going to really help them, but might show them, boy, you know so much. That's not the purpose. It's always for the purpose of the salvation of the individual that's being encouraged. It's never for the purpose of showing the mentor knows so much shit. Okay? In the analogy that begins, suppose a lion has 100 cubs, he clarifies how the limitless benefits of making offerings to the Lotus Sutra actually manifest in our lives. Here the Lotus Sutra, endowed with the infinite power of the single character Myo, is likened to a lion king, while those who embrace and make offerings to the Lotus Sutra are like the lion, likened to lion cubs. In contrast, those who reside in the unfortunate state of hell, hunger, and animality, the lower 3 of the 10 worlds, are likened to beasts or birds of prey. When the Lion King roars, no matter what beasts or birds of prey may threaten, the 100 lion cubs are filled with courage and can defeat them. Like us when we're in front of the Gohonzon and facing very difficult or even impossible situations. That's what Mugi Washin is. We still have the confidence that somehow through this process of prayer and the practice of our faith to the Gohonzon, we're going to manifest a power that's going to show actual proof.
Right.
All right? He's saying even the 100 lion cubs are filled with courage and can defeat them. In the same way, individuals who make offerings to the Lotus Sutra can acquire the immeasurable power of the single character Myo and win over those in negative life states such as hell, hunger, and animality. All right? Everybody's with me?
Yes.
The Lotus Sutra is the Lion King of the sutras. Therefore, Nichiren encourages the lay nun Shinichi, saying, a woman who embraces the Lion King of the Lotus Sutra never fears any of the beasts of hell or of the realms of hungry spirits and animals. Here, he specifically says, a woman. In the male-dominated warrior society of the day, women were generally in a weak and disadvantaged position. We can speculate that the lay nun, as one of Nichiren's leading followers on Sado Island, may have encountered or heard of other women suffering due to illness, old age, or family problems, and may have sought Nichiren's advice on such matters. Or perhaps he may have sensed some wavering or vacillation in her heart, which prompted him to write these words. Whatever the case, he warmly encourages her, assuring her that a woman who embraces the Lotus Sutra, the Lion King of Sutras, has absolutely nothing to fear. Okay, so he doesn't admonish her in a like, why don't you have stronger faith? He's basically encouraging her. He understands what her life condition is. He understands who she is. He understands the effort that she's made. Okay, and he tries to convey the truth in the most understandable manner in which she can apply it.
Right.
Which is, again, doubt-free faith. Don't be afraid. Don't be defeated. Faith, victory of gold. That's what he's basically saying. Indeed, this passage might also be interpreted as a frank acknowledgement of the strong faith of women, which I've acknowledged and mentioned many times. For we generally find that it is women, more so than men, who often let egoism and appearances hold them back, who demonstrate the infinite power of the mystic law at a crucial moment, just as the teachings instruct. The power of belief leads to a state of mind free of fear or doubt, which is the very essence of what it means to have faith. No devilish function can possibly defeat a woman who has attained such a state of mind. A woman of deep faith who correctly practices the mystic law possesses the wisdom to instantly distinguish between right and wrong. She has the essential courage to sweep away the three poisons of greed, anger, and foolishness. She is endowed with an all-nurturing compassion. Inspired by the example of a teacher awakened to the mystic law, her wisdom, courage, and compassion fuse together in a firm, unwavering resolve. Such a woman will never be swayed by the maneuvers of any devilish function. Is everybody with me? Those of you that are here without penises sitting around the table. Do you understand what he's basically saying right there? What is he saying? You're more powerful than any man.
Right.
You are definitely more powerful than any man. You usually lead the men to this understanding. You usually come to this understanding before they do. You usually generate a practice that elucidates this wisdom before they do. Okay? So never, ever, ever in the teachings of Nichiren Daishonin are women diminished in any way. They are held up almost as the example for all mankind to follow. Do you understand? Yeah. He's saying President Toda used to say the realization of Kosen Rufu is a success or failure will depend on the efforts of women. If you practice 45 years like me or close to it, I'm in my 45th year now, wherever you go, you can see it as clear as day. The guy up there talking on the mic might be a guy, but the vast number of people in the audience, the vast number of people that are supporting the organization that meeting could even come together with, the vast number of people that did shakabuku were women. Period. All right? He says, President Toda used to say, the realization of Kosen Rufu is success or failure will depend on the efforts of women. Absolutely nothing can stand in the way of women who know the greatest of all joys, that are Buddhists, which comes from chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. The presence and example of women whose lives have been revitalized through such joy can become a powerful source of inspiration for many others. Because a lot of times women, that's all they got. All they got is faith. All they got is the power of their own life. They've already been dealt an inferior hand because they're women. Who was the dealer? Men. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So men have already put women at a disadvantage forever. Okay? So what have the women got to be able to rely on? In many instances, nothing other than themselves. They can't even rely on men. In all candor. Right? You know that, 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 you know that. Right? Men, we should always respect women for who they really are. Yeah. They're actually our leaders. Yeah. All the offenses committed by a woman in her lifetime are like dry grass. This is from the Gosho again. And the single character Myo of the Lotus Sutra is like a small spark. When a small spark is set to a large expanse of grass, not only the grass but also the big trees and large stones will all be consumed. Such is the power of the fire of wisdom in a single character Myo. Not only will all offenses vanish, but they will become sources of benefit. This is what changing poison into amrita means. For example, black lacquer will turn into white when white powder is added. A woman's offenses are like the lacquer, and the words Nam Myoho Renge Kyo like the white powder. When one dies, if one is destined to fall into hell, one's appearance will darken, and one's body will become as heavy as a stone that requires the strength of 1,000 men to move. But in the case of a good person, even if she be a woman 7 or 8 feet tall and of dark complexion, at the hour of death her countenance will become pure and white, and her body will be as light as a goose feather and as soft and pliable as cotton. The power of the mystic law to change poison into medicine. The encouragement to the lay nun Senichi. This is at the bottom of page 9, second column. The encouragement to the lay nun Senichi continues, Nichiren Daishonin indicates, again by means of an analogy, that the mystic law has the power to change the poison of all offenses and all misfortunes into medicine, transforming that which is negative in our lives into something positive. The sum of all the offenses a person commits in a lifetime is likened to a large expanse of dry grass, while the power of the single character Myo that can instantly eradicate these myriad offenses is likened to a small spark. He uses these similes to indicate that his single character of the Lotus Sutra can function to erase the many offenses a person has committed over a lifetime. Such is the immense power of the mystic law. Because of this, we can live with assurance and peace of mind. The offenses of a lifetime can be understood to mean the problems and sufferings we encounter in the course of our lives. We earnestly chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo each day to overcome all of our problems and have everything go well in our lives without making mistakes we might regret. When we follow this solid path in life, then no matter what adverse circumstances or difficult problems we may encounter, all of our worries, anxieties, and mistakes will be burned away in the fire of wisdom in the same way that the flames from a small spark can consume whole stretches of dry grass. Moreover, Nichiren says that when a large expanse of dry grass is set aflame, that even big trees and large stones will be consumed in that fire. In other words, as long as we keep challenging ourselves in faith to resolve our problems through the fire fueled by our efforts to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and teach others to do the same, Jigyo Keita, we can also eventually burn away even heavy, deep-rooted negative karma and break through the fundamental darkness that is the source of all misery and unhappiness. When we do so, our lives are certain to blossom with the great benefit of transforming our karma and attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime. Is everybody with me what he just said there, though? Okay, so what's he really saying, though? Actually, what is he also alluding to in that paragraph? It's a very long paragraph. But what he's also basically saying is that how do we overcome these deeper, heavier karmas? It's by getting rid of the lighter karmas. The process of practice in front of the Gohonzon chanting Daimoku is the process by which we begin to garner the wisdom that allows us to perceive that even the heavy shit can get knocked out too. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So one leads to the other. That's what he's trying to make sure that you understand. He's saying, again, we can also eventually burn away even heavy. So while we're chanting about the things that we think we can, we don't even try to chant about the heavy stuff. It's beyond sometimes even our ability to perceive. Right? But it's through the process of daily faith, overcoming the little shit, or overcoming whatever's in front of us now, that ultimately allows us to overcome everything. It's steadfast, endless, day by day, day by day, day by day effort. Do you understand? All right, so he's saying, in this writing, Nichiren says, not only will all offenses vanish, but they will become sources of benefit. This is what changing poison into Amrita means. The great Mahayana Buddhist scholar Nagarjuna interpreted the Sanskrit word. Everybody knows that changing poison into medicine actually comes from Nagarjuna, right? Mm-hmm. The concept. He's the one that says Lotus Sutra is even the great teaching that it can turn poison into medicine. That's from Nagarjuna. That's what led Tentai to perceive what he perceived and everything else that happened after that. Right? So he says, the great Mahayana Buddhist scholar Nagarjuna interpreted the Sanskrit word sad, which we know is myo, right? Of the Lotus Sutra Sanskrit Sadharma Pundarika Sutra, as the benefit of changing poison into medicine. This power enables us to change the three paths, earthly desires, karma, and sufferings, into the three virtues, dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation. Now, do you understand what he just said there, though? This power enables us to change the three paths of earthly desires, karma, and sufferings into the three virtues of dharma, and I've mentioned this before. What's the significance? It refers, in other words, to the doctrine of attaining Buddhahood in one's present form. How do we attain Buddhahood in our present form? Of course, by chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. I know. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying, what is what is the process that's occurred by when we're chanting? What is the chanting done in the temporary gathering of the 5 components, or our infinite karma that would manifest as such? Because we're nice people?
No.
It's not about it's kind of about Ichiden and Sanzen, but it's not really. It's talking about the 3 virtues, not parent, teacher, and sovereign, but the 3 virtues of earthly desire, of dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation. Right? We transform the 3 paths of earthly desires, karma, and suffering into. We don't replace. In other words, without the 3 evil paths, earthly desires, karma, and suffering, we have nothing to change into dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation. The only reason we can attain Buddhahood in our present form is because of our earthly desires, karma, and suffering. That is the firewood that leads us to the enlightenment. Why would you practice Buddhism if everything's wonderful? Okay? Why would you practice Buddhism if you had no karma? I mean, no negative karma anyhow. That's what I'm referring to. Right? It's because those things grab us at the beginning that we begin to learn and expose the wisdom that's already innately within us. Do you understand what I'm saying? All right? And it's only because we're common mortals that we can become Buddhists. It's only because we have all of the 9 worlds as the mother and father that we're able to give birth to the 10th world in our own life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Everybody's with me then. Okay, so he's saying this power enables us. Enables us. It's only because of this. Changing poison into medicine. It's only because we change the poison of earthly desires, karma, and suffering into the medicine of dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation that we actually do attain Buddhahood in our present form. We're all together, right?
Yeah.
All right. In addition, a transformation in the karma or destiny of one person opens the way to a transformation in the karma or destiny of all mankind. Huh, New Bern? Right? A single change in one person always equals at least a change in another. And exponentially, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 and 8 is 16. 16 and 16 is 32. All right? In addition, a transformation in the karma or destiny of one person opens the way to a transformation in the karma or destiny of all humankind. So once again, what's he saying? It doesn't count. All that matters is you. It's not dependent on anybody but a single individual. All right? It doesn't take a path or group or club. It's the faith of a single person that drives the faith of many others. Following in the lay nun Shinichi's footsteps, our women's division and young women's division members today are leading the way in our efforts to realize this fundamental transformation. Commenting on the development of democracy, Walt Whitman, standard bearer of the American Renaissance, expressed high expectations for the activities of women. He declared that they are great in all departments. And he also exclaimed, great, great, indeed far greater than they know, is the sphere of women. God, nothing could be truer than that. And the only reason that they don't know is men have convinced them of their limitations that don't exist. The activities of women who have embraced the Lion King of the Lotus Sutra, therefore, are sure to change the world into an important, or change the world in an important and significant way. Our network of Soka women is a treasure of the world, fulfilling that momentous mission. I'm going to finish it. The correct and steadfast mind, because I want to get into this thing about colors at the point of death. I don't want to leave you with a week to think about that. A correct and steadfast mind at the moment of death is the proof of attaining Buddhahood. The analogies continue. Nichiren Daishonin says that just as black lacquer will turn white when white powder is added, the mystic law has the power to eradicate any offense. As proof of this, he comments on the difference in the appearance at the moment of death of a person who has sincerely lived in accord with the mystic law and one who has slandered the law and is destined to fall into a state of hell. One who has slandered the law and is destined to fall into a state of hell. Since this is a well-known passage in which Nichiren discusses the appearance of the deceased, allow me to confirm an important point regarding the moment of death. While he uses such statements as her countenance will become pure and white, and her body will be as light as a goose feather, and as soft and pliable as cotton, to describe the appearance of deceased individuals who have upheld the mystic law to the end of their lives, what is most important at the moment of death is a person's heart or state of mind. In other words, they're having a correct and steadfast mind at the moment of death. When it comes to physical appearance, individuals, of course, differ widely, and this is definitely not an absolute standard for determining whether someone has attained Buddhahood. Consequently, there is no point in getting caught up in what people's appearance is after they die. I'll read that one more time. Consequently, there is no point in getting caught up in what people's appearance is like after they die. Encourage them up to the moment of their death. That's what's important. When he says that a deceased person's countenance will become pure and white, we can take this to refer to an inner radiance manifested in the person's expression. The joyful expression, for instance, of someone departing for the next existence, embraced in the voices of friends and loved ones chanting for his or her happiness. The bright, gentle expression of a person who exudes an ineffable serenity. The noble expression of a person who shines with the triumph of a lofty mission fulfilled, imparting courage and hope to all beholders. Some people die young. Some people die in unforeseen accidents. And some people die after long battles with illness. But whatever the case, there is no need to worry. What matters is a person's heart at the final moment, not the manner of death. And the Gosho exemplifies that time and time again. It's not like his closest disciples all lived to be 100 and those that were shit lived to be, 30. No. He had many people that he praises as having beautiful, sincere, perfect faith that died at 16, okay, or died later. Lots of widows whose husbands practiced were also his disciples, but obviously they preceded their wives in death. He says, but whatever the case, there is no need to worry. What matters is the person's heart at the final moment, not the manner of death. What matters is whether that person has persevered in faith to the very end. That's the key. And perseveres. Perseveres means kept fighting. It's not something you can qualify. In one writing, Nichiren cites the Nirvana Sutra, which states a mad elephant can only destroy your body. It cannot destroy your mind, i.e. your heart. In modern terms, mad elephant might correspond to things like traffic accidents. Regardless of how people may die, brother, if they have formed a deep connection with the mystic law and devoted themselves wholeheartedly to their mission in this world, they are sure to shine with a magnificent inner brilliance at the moment of death, no matter how that death occurs or when. On this, we can absolutely rest assured. This is the Daishonin's guarantee to us. It is the manifestation of an inscrutable causality. A person's heart is always what is most important. That's all you have to worry about. And your heart is what is the connection no matter what. It is and then he goes on with reading more of the Gosho. And I will continue because this is the last page. Yeah. It is 1,000 ri across the sea and mountains from Sato province to this province of Kai, where Mount Minobu is located. You as a woman have held fast to your faith in the Lotus Sutra, and over the years you have repeatedly sent your husband here to visit me in your place. Surely the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhism of the 10 directions know of your devotion. For example, though the moon is 40,000 yojanas high in the heavens, its reflection appears instantly in a pond on earth, and the sound of the drum of the gate of thunder is immediately heard 1,000, 10,000 ri in the distance. Though you remain in Sato, your heart has come to this province. The way of attaining Buddhahood is just like this. Though we live in the impure land, our hearts reside in the pure land of Eagle Peak. Merely seeing each other's face would in itself be insignificant. It is the heart that is important. Someday let us meet at the pure land of Eagle Peak, where Shakyamuni Buddha dwells. Our hearts of faith can transcend any distance. Nichiren Daishonin writes, though you remain in Sato, your heart has come to this province. He is telling the lay nun, Shinichi, that even though she hasn't set foot outside of Sato, which is far away across mountains and sea, her heart has reached him at Mount Minobu. Nichiren may well have sensed that she felt sad at the thought that she might never see him again in her lifetime. But in our Buddhist practice, there is no need to lament. Based on faith in the mystic law, our hearts can instantaneously cross any distance. Nichiren's encouragement conveys the message, you are fighting alongside me in spirit, regardless of time or distance. We can easily imagine how much courage and hope this must have given the lay nun and all of us. Next, she states, though we live in the impure land, our hearts reside in the pure land of Eagle Peak. He explains that although the Sahe world in which they dwell is an impure land, realm of the 9 worlds, the hearts of those who embrace the correct teaching reside in the pure land of Eagle Peak, the 10th world, which is to say the land of eternally tranquil light, Buddhahood. But even when one attains the enlightened state of Buddhahood, it doesn't mean that he or she will stop having problems or can avoid living in an impure land, because all Buddhas live in the Sahe world. Right. Nevertheless, if we as ordinary human beings establish a state of absolute and indestructible happiness in the depths of our lives, we will never be consigned to misery. By saying our hearts reside in the pure land of Eagle Peak, he is explaining that we can bring forth within us the supremely noble state of Buddhahood that will not be swayed by any problem or circumstance. Merely seeing each other's face would be in itself insignificant, parenthetically, indicates that faith is not determined by meeting face to face with a mentor. It is the heart that is important, he asserts. And one's heart is expressed in one's actions. In the case of the lay nun Shinichi, her devotion is revealed in her sending a Butsabo, her husband, to visit Nichiren almost every year. It is an expression of her unchanging commitment of faith. In the succinct statement, it is the heart that is important. Nichiren conveys to her that he is fully aware of her sincere dedication and that this dedication is the way to attaining Buddhahood. The bonds of mentor and disciple in Buddhism are eternal and everlasting. Always remember this. Nichiren Daishonin concludes this writing by saying, someday let us meet at the pure land of Eagle Peak, where Shakyamuni Buddha dwells. These words are a declaration that in the lay nun's faith, these words are a declaration that the lay nun's faith is genuine and that she can definitely attain Buddhahood in this lifetime and meet Nichiren at the pure land of Eagle Peak. The bonds of mentor and disciple in Buddhism are everlasting. Although Butsabo and the lay nun Shinichi demonstrated a tireless spirit to seek out the teachings and philosophy of Nichiren, and their son Tokuro Moritsuna, who as a fellow practitioner of the Lotus Sutra inherited his parents' spirit, carried on his father's tradition, and visited Nichiren at Mount Minobu. All three are exemplary disciples who strove with the same commitment as Nichiren during his lifetime. In other words, so their behavior was of the same mind as Nichiren. In a discussion with members of the student division, I once responded as follows to a question about the oneness or unity of mentor and disciple. It means to have a mentor in your heart while standing on your own 2 feet. President Toda resides in my heart. This is not something you speak out loud. It's a matter of the heart. This is because unity is something that exists inside you. At all times, no matter where I am, I feel as if I am constantly engaged in a dialogue with President Toda as I go about my activities. Our unity exists within me. The unity of mentor and disciple transcends distance and time. The hearts of mentor and disciple compose an eternal history of united struggle. Upholding the great philosophy of Nichiren Buddhism that teaches that the heart is the most important, let us apply ourselves with even greater sincerity and dedication in our ongoing efforts for Kosen Rufu. And I have the same dialogue with my mentors in front of the Gohonzon, and who knows, someday you may think about me the same way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.